Many will tell you this is why Colin Kaepernick did not work out long-term in the NFL. They are wrong. At one point in time, specifically heading into 2013, the hype around Kaepernick was tremendous.
I truly believe Colin Kaepernick could be one of the greatest quarterbacks ever.
And to act like the 49ers did nothing in Kaepernick's first few seasons as the starter would be a lie. They nearly won the Super Bowl in 2012 and went back to the NFC Championship game in 2013. Through his first 1.5 seasons of starting games for the Niners, Kaepernick's record was 21-8. And while it's fair to acknowledge that San Francisco had one of the best rosters and coaches in the NFL at that time, you still have to give credit where credit is due. This is the same guy who ran for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns in a playoff game, which still stands as an NFL record for most quarterback rushing yards in a single playoff game. He still ranks top 5 in interception rate, tied with Tom Brady and Pat Mahomes. Ever heard of them? Until this day, he still remains top 10 all time in touchdown to interception ratio among all quarterbacks. So despite the focus on his downfall, which will admittedly take place the rest of this video, this wasn't some talentless scrub who went on this random Linsanity run throughout the early 2010s. But after 2013, this Niners team that looked like it was going to be a juggernaut for years to come wouldn't exactly live up to those expectations. After 2013 though, the Niners made a long-term commitment to Kaepernick, giving him a 6-year $126 million extension and reported $61 million guaranteed. It wasn't as big of a commitment as it looked, and the Niners could essentially release Kaepernick at any time had he not been living up to his deal. 2014 happened and it was a step backwards for everybody involved, whether it was Kaepernick himself or the team as a whole. The Niners defense was banged up with Navarro Bowman out for the entire year, Patrick Willis missing 11 games, and Aldon Smith being suspended for 9 games. Offensively, the Niners went from the 11th ranked offense in 2013 all the way down to the 25th ranked offense in 2014. Kaepernick was sacked a career high 52 times that season, a 13 sack increase from the year prior. His passer rating dropped 5 points and had fewer touchdowns while throwing more interceptions. Having 10 different starting offensive line combinations in 16 games did not help either. And we've heard the criticism for Greg Roman's offense during the Lamar Jackson era in Baltimore, but the same can be applied here. It was an offense that in the beginning of his tenure was innovative and was able to destroy teams on the ground, but just like his time with the Ravens, it eventually got stale and predictable. And then of course there was the off-field turmoil between head coach Jim Harbaugh and Trent Baalke, as well as Jed York. Ultimately, York chose the side of Baalke and the rest was history on that front. So then it was on to 2015. No more Jim Harbaugh, no more Greg Roman, no more Vic Fangio, no more Patrick Willis, no more Justin Smith, no more Frank Gore, and there was even more. It was basically a brand new team and a new era in San Francisco. But some still remained, and that included Kaepernick, who was heading into his 5th season and 3rd as the unquestioned starter. It was also the first time in his pro career without Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman coaching him. It was now Jim Tomsula, a defensive-minded head coach, and Jeep Christ, who had been there for Kaepernick's entire career as the quarterback coach, but now he was the offensive play caller. Not only the coaching staff, but a lot of talent was lost via free agency, injury, or retirement. Of course, Frank Gore went to Indy, Michael Crabtree went to the Raiders, Mike Iupati went to the Cardinals, and right tackle Anthony Davis had a surprising retirement. However, week 1 of 2015 went really well. Kaepernick was solid, had 41 rushing yards, and the Niners cruised to a 20-3 victory to start 1-0 in the Tomsula era. After week 1 though, the wheels really fell off. They got destroyed in Pittsburgh, letting up 43 points. They followed that up with a stinker in Arizona, where Kaepernick only completed 13 passes, and 4 of those were to the wrong team. And these weren't like, oh, the guy ran the wrong route type interceptions. These were staring down one guy and throwing across your body. It was terrible. After that embarrassing outing, they followed that up by scoring 3 points in week 4, where Kaepernick played poorly yet again. By this point, we were 4 games in, and there were real concerns about Kaepernick's play. Rumors surfaced that the 49ers were in favor of benching him for Blaine Gabbert, but Jim Tomsula was not ready to make that kind of drastic change just yet. To Kaepernick's credit, he would bounce back the next 2 games, splitting with the Giants and the Ravens, where the quarterback had 4 touchdowns and no turnovers. But just when things started to look better, the Niners would lose their next 2 games, which not only happened to be in division games, but they were not competitive at all. San Francisco was outscored 9-47 in weeks 7 and 8 combined, leading to the first official benching of Colin Kaepernick. The 28-year-old quarterback was having his worst statistical season up until that point, and although Blaine Gabbert wasn't any better, it was something they had to do. Apparently the locker room was split and Tom Sula was fighting for his life basically, so it just had to be done. As stated earlier, there were plenty of personnel reasons as to why Colin Kaepernick had such a dramatic drop-off in production for the 2015 season, but the truth was he did look worse himself, and you really saw no progress from him in terms of being an efficient pocket passer. But the thing that really may have stunted Kaepernick's growth is something that happens to a lot of young players that take the league by storm. They simply just figured him out. By this point in 2015, the read option had been widely used by NFL teams for the past 3 to 5 years, and to no surprise, defensive coordinators were figuring out how to stop it. Whether it was Colin Kaepernick, RG3, Russell Wilson, or Cam Newton, quarterback rushing efficiency was taking a hit everywhere around the league. Kaepernick, who mainly spent his time in shotgun or in pistol, thrived off of read options early in his career and was no longer doing it with such ease. The power running attack they were so successful with Harbaugh and Roman no longer existed, especially after Carlos Hyde broke his foot in week 7. Through the first 8 weeks of that 2015 season, San Francisco ranked dead last in offensive scoring, 31st in offensive yards per game, 29th in passing yards per game, 21st in rushing, and 29th in third down conversion rate. Just a year and a half after back-to-back NFC Championship appearances, the Niners were viewed as one of the more dysfunctional teams in the NFL. In late November, Kaepernick was placed on IR for a torn labrum in his left shoulder, a 4 to 6 month recovery time which would ultimately put an end to his disappointing 2015 season. The good news was the Niners won their first game with Blaine Gabbert as the starter. The bad news was they went 2-5 the rest of the way, both wins coming in overtime, to finish 5-11. Head coach Jim Tom Sula was fired after just 1 year, and with that came yet another coaching overhaul, the third coaching overhaul in the past 3 years for San Francisco. And this time it wasn't just another hire from within the organization, this time it was Chip Kelly. With Kelly, it was a bold hire, but one that brought new philosophy and could inject new life into what was the worst offense in football the previous year. It was widely speculated that Kelly's up-tempo, mobile quarterback-friendly offensive scheme would be a good fit for Kaepernick's skill set, offering him a chance to regain his previous form. The 2016 preseason was an interesting one for the Niners. For Kaepernick, he'd have to have a battle for the quarterback 1 spot with Blaine Gabbert, who to that point was now 27 years old and had an 8-27 record in the NFL. It was an uphill battle for Kaepernick, who had surgery on his right thumb, left knee, and left shoulder all during the 2016 offseason. By late July, he was fully cleared to practice with the team, but Gabbert being healthy for the entire offseason did give him the upper hand. Kaepernick would end up missing the first 2 preseason games of 2016, but did get to play in the final 2. In the midst of all that came the protesting. In the first 2 preseason games, it went unnoticed when Kaepernick was not playing. By the 3rd preseason game on August 27th, 2016, it was brought to the public eye that Colin Kaepernick was sitting on the bench during the national anthem. Of course, this sparked tons and tons of controversy, and honestly, it lasted for years. And this is what Kaepernick said when first asked why he sat during the national anthem. "I'm not going to stand up and show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football and would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder." As reported by Ian Rappaport at that time, players were encouraged but not required to stand for the playing of the national anthem. As for their play on the field, Gabbert looked decent in his 3 games in the preseason, and Kaepernick looked about the same during his 2 games of action. On September 2nd, their final preseason game, Kaepernick decided to kneel for the national anthem rather than sitting, claiming it was a more respectful way to protest. A day later, Blaine Gabbert was named the starting quarterback, but coach Chip Kelly explained this was a football decision and had nothing to do with the protesting. And in reality, he was probably telling the truth. Kaepernick had missed time in the offseason, came in too skinny, and had issues with a dead arm, as it was reported. It was actually a bit of a surprise that Kaepernick even made the 49ers roster at all, considering he had the large injury guarantee on his contract, and now the added off-field drama. Well, I guess on-field drama. After a dominating Week 1 win, the Niners season really went off the rails after that. Blaine Gabbert started the first 5 games, but was benched after a 1-4 start with underwhelming stats. Maybe it was something to do with 49ers fans chanting "We want Cap" while getting blown out by Drew Stanton on national TV. I mean, that just has to be rock rock bottom. Chip Kelly turned to Kaepernick, who was starting his first game in almost a full calendar year. It started out well with the Niners getting out to a 10-7 lead and Torrey Smith scoring a 53-yard touchdown on a busted coverage. But after that, it all went downhill. The Bills and Tyrod Taylor went on a 38-6 run from that point on and won this Week 6 matchup 45-16. Kaepernick didn't play well, but it could have been worse, I guess. At least he ran for 66 yards. From that point on, the Niners did a lot of losing. From weeks 2 through 15, they did not win a single game, breaking a franchise record for the longest losing streak in Niners history at 13 in a row. There were some rough ones in there, including a 6-26 loss at Chicago, where Kaepernick was pulled after just 5 passes. The only thing Kaepernick really did well on the field that year was running. He was second amongst all quarterbacks in total rushing and number 1 in rushing yards per game. As a passer, the numbers didn't look awful. 16 passing touchdowns to just 4 interceptions and a 90 passer rating. He still failed to complete over 60% of his passes and finish well below league average in yards per attempt. The Niners may have had the 27th ranked offense that year, but their defense was even worse, ranking dead last by far in the NFL. For the second year in a row, the Niners had a one-and-done head coach as Chip Kelly was fired. For Kaepernick, he was still in the middle of a 6-year deal, but had a big decision to make. Due to the restructure of his deal in early 2016, he had the ability to opt out and become an unrestricted free agent. Knowing that the Niners were more than likely going to replace him anyway, especially with a new regime coming in, Kaepernick made the decision to opt out and leave San Francisco. But opting out was risky, and it was due to his new public image. Throughout the entire 2016 season, Kaepernick kneeled before each and every game. Most teams' owners quietly disapproved of his actions, and the few that spoke out in his defense still did not give him an opportunity to play for their team. As a player, Kaepernick was now 29 years old, coming off of a somewhat respectable season if you exclude wins and losses. Due to his age, pedigree, and recent numbers, he was undoubtedly good enough to be a backup quarterback somewhere. But at the time, there were multiple concerns of his overall regression, multiple surgeries, passing ability, and teams now knowing how to stop him. During 2017's offseason, Kaepernick only visited one team, and it was the Seattle Seahawks. With Russell Wilson being durable and in the prime of his career, the intention was to certainly be a backup, but Kaepernick still left Seattle unsigned. To no surprise, his market was ice cold and went completely unsigned during the 2017 offseason. In October of 2017, Kaepernick made a decision that would all but end any chance he had of ever playing again. He filed a grievance against the NFL and its owners for alleged collusion to blackball him from the league due to his ongoing protest the year prior in 2016. In 2019, there was a settlement that included confidential financial compensation for Kaepernick, but the NFL nor their owners ever publicly admitted of any collusion. Also in 2019, Kaepernick had an organized workout in Atlanta where they invited all 32 teams, but reportedly only 8 of them showed up. Once again, he remained unsigned. 3 years later in 2022, then 34 years old, he had a workout with the Las Vegas Raiders. There were conflicting reports of how the workout actually went, and it's not even worth speculating because we'll never get the truth anyway, but yet again, he still went unsigned. It's 2025 and we're still hearing rumors till this day of Kaepernick, now 37 years old, trying to get onto an NFL roster. I'm not sure if it's for publicity or trying to stay relevant or if he genuinely believes a team will give in, but it's safe to say it's over. I've always had the opinion that if he was really serious about making a comeback, he would have played in the XFL, USFL, CFL, or any other organized league. They could have used the ratings and Kaepernick could have used the live reps, especially if he was dominating the competition. All in all, it wasn't just the protesting that kept Colin Kaepernick out of the NFL before turning 30. Would he have hung around as a backup for a few more years? Most likely yes. But this notion that he wasn't starting for a team because of his protesting is just false. It had more to do with his declining skill set and NFL teams figuring out how to defend him. Once the read option was defended and it took away the numbers advantage it created, a lot of Kaepernick's powers evaporated. He was never meant to win from the pocket, but that's what defenses were forcing him to do. He just couldn't do it. Of course, there were other factors like Jim Harbaugh leaving or his surrounding cast getting older, or even injuries of his own that were starting to take a toll on his body. It's a shame because at first, Kaepernick looked like he'd be in a perfect situation and could end up being one of the winningest quarterbacks of all time, but in what felt like a blink of an eye, it was all over. And despite his personal decision that ultimately ended his career early, he still has no regrets till this day. If you enjoyed the video, of course leave a like and subscribe for for more NFL content. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.